Hello and welcome to Diabetes Connections in the News. I'm Stacey Sims, and every other Friday, I bring you a short episode with the top diabetes stories and headlines happening now. Our top story this week, Novo Nordisk will move ahead looking for approval for a new combination, once-weekly insulin icodec and semaglutide. Called IcoSema, Novo plans to submit for approval in Europe, Canada, Japan, and Australia, but not the U.S. That's because, as we told you earlier this summer, icodec, once-weekly basal insulin, was not approved by the U.S. FDA. As you know, semaglutide is the foundation of the immensely popular GLP-1 drugs Ozempic and Wegovy. Icodec has been approved as a weekly in the countries I mentioned, but the FDA did not approve. They have left the door open for another application here, but Novo Nordisk says they don't expect to iron it out in 2024. In studies, the combination drug worked very well to lower A1C for people with type 2, and they lost weight, and they also had fewer lows. An update from Tandem on their app recall. Back in March, Tandem notified users of the recall because of an issue that can cause rapid depletion of insulin pump batteries. That can result in the pump shutting down sooner than expected, which some customers have continued to experience even after an updated version of the app was released. New notices went out the week of August 9th with updated informations and recommendations. Tandem will release a new version of the app to address remaining issues, and they will notify all users by email and an app push notification following its release. If you have questions, I have everything linked up in the show notes for this episode. You can go to diabetes-connections.com or wherever you're listening to find the show notes. Every story in the news gets an external link and more information, so it should be pretty easy to find. If you have questions, though, please reach out. If you're an adult with type 1, you may be eligible for a trial of a new investigational liver-targeted insulin. This study is all about the insulin, which is called HDVL, and to see if it'll improve glycemic control. This insulin acts on the liver to enhance glucose storage and decrease the frequency of severe hypoglycemia. You have to be over the age of 18 and younger than 80, and you have to be on multiple daily injections. Again, more information and the links in the show notes. Sanofi investing heavily to boost their insulin production. They've opened a new facility in Germany for the basal insulin Lantus, and they will invest over $1 billion to expand production capacity in France. Now, this is interesting because other insulin companies appear to be focusing their efforts not on insulin, but on the production of GLP medications like Mounjaro and Ozempic. We've talked about this here before. Will insulin production become a problem as these other medications become more lucrative? And Sanofi is seemingly signaling here that they're not going anywhere when it comes to insulin. Hoping to talk to Abbott and Medronic soon about their partnership announced earlier this month. The companies announced that Abbott will create an integrated continuous glucose monitor that works only with Medtronic's diabetes tech and will be sold exclusively by Medtronic. Along with announcing the partnership, Medtronic said it also has received FDA approval for the Simplera CGM. That's to be used with their smart insulin pens. The Simplera Sync sensor will be used with the 780G pumps, but that is still under FDA review separately. Here's an interesting one. Researchers have developed a computer algorithm that can predict various diseases like diabetes just by looking at your tongue with 98% accuracy. This was done through a series of experiments using more than 5,000 images to train machine learning algorithms to detect tongue color. This was developed in Australia and published in the journal Technologies. Big roundup article around smart insulin from the UK Guardian. Not a lot new here, but it did cause a lot of online chatter, so I will link it up. Very good summary of all the research happening in the space right now. A smart insulin, or really it's called glucose-responsive insulin, is the idea that you could give one injection and then the insulin would respond to the rise and fall of glucose levels without further action needed by the person. Right back to the news in just a minute. But first, life is busy and managing diabetes is a daily commitment. Edgepark can help you say goodbye to the worry of managing your diabetes supplies with a variety of cutting-edge insulin delivery systems from brands like Medtronic and Tandem. Plus, Edgepark accepts most insurance plans and handles the paperwork, so you can simplify your life, your diabetes care, and your budget in one click. Visit diabetes-connections.com to learn more. Back to the news, and Lance Bass continues to keep the public posted on his recent LADA diagnosis. the singer, dancer, entertainer, showing his Instagram audience more about what's also called diabetes 1.5 and explaining how he was first diagnosed with type 2. That type 2 misdiagnosis came several years ago, and he announced he actually has type 1.5 or LADA just a couple of weeks ago. You know, we get excited about this because LADA is very much unknown among the general population and obviously among a lot of doctors as well. Keeping an eye on this. Love to have him on the podcast. Of course, if anybody has any connections, I have already reached out, so we'll see. But boy, if he educates well here, this could really go a long way to helping a lot of people who've already been misdiagnosed get the correct diagnosis. And finally, okay, brace yourself. I promise this is a real news story. I went back and forth on whether to include it, but I'm putting it in. Headline: the fart walk is actually good for you. Stay with me. This is really just a very silly reframing of something we all know, and I could not resist putting it in this week. A wellness influencer, I gotta love that, put this on her feed. You may have seen it because it has been picked up. I think People Magazine, USA Today, among very many. And she had said that the after-dinner stroll can limit your risk of type 2 diabetes. A lot of studies do confirm that, along with it having benefits if you already have diabetes. The flatulence part, or a release of gastric pressure, is also a known benefit of moving more after meals. So it's funny. Look, farts are always funny. But if it gets more people to walk after they eat, I am all for it. I don't think I can top that. So that is in the news for this week. Join us again in just a couple of days for our regular interview episodes. I'm Stacey Sims. Until then, be kind to yourself.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.